All right. So we're diving into 15 techniques for improving your English. No matter where you're starting from, we've got something for you.
I think that's true.
In this deep dive. It's going to be like a treasure map.
Okay.
Leading you to some pretty surprising and effective methods. I bet you'll find at least a few you haven't tried before. What do you think?
I think what's really interesting is how many of these techniques focus on making the learning process enjoyable.
Right.
We're not talking about dusty old textbooks here.
Exactly. We're talking about movies.
Exactly.
Music books. Things you might already be doing in your free time.
Right.
It's all about finding ways to weave English into your life.
Yeah.
In a way that feels natural and, dare I say, fun.
You're absolutely right.
Okay.
Take watching movies or TV shows, for example.
Yeah.
If you're a beginner, jumping straight into something like The Crown might feel overwhelming with all that complex vocabulary and those rapid-fire British accents.
Yeah, I'd probably be reaching for the subtitles every 2 seconds.
Right?
So where would you suggest a beginner start?
Something light and engaging would be perfect.
Okay.
An animated movie like Finding Nemo.
I was going to say that.
Or even a sitcom like Friends, where the language is a bit more straightforward.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Using things you're already interested in is such a smart way to stay motivated. Plus, who doesn't love rewatching a classic like Friends? It's practically a cultural touchstone at this point.
Right.
And for those of us who love to curl up with a good book, what are some options there?
Well, there are these things called graded readers.
Okay.
And honestly, they're a game changer for bookworms.
What is that?
They're basically books that are rewritten specifically for English learners using simpler vocabulary and sentence structures.
Hold on. So I could potentially tackle Pride and Prejudice even if my vocabulary is still pretty basic.
You got it.
That's pretty cool. You know, it's funny you mentioned graded readers because when I was learning Spanish, they were a lifesaver. It felt way less intimidating than trying to jump into a full-blown novel right away.
Sure.
It actually made me feel like I was making real progress, which kept me going.
And that's such a key point. Feeling like you're making progress.
Totally.
That sense of accomplishment can be incredibly motivating.
Yeah.
And it's important to remember that progress isn't just about passively consuming content. We need to get actively involved, and that means practicing speaking, writing, and using language learning apps to really solidify our skills.
Okay, but speaking practice.
Yeah.
That's where things get a little scary for a lot of us, right?
I think so.
I know. I used to be terrified of making mistakes in front of native speakers.
Oh, sure.
Like, my heart would practically beat out of my chest.
I can imagine.
So how do we get over that fear and actually start speaking with confidence?
Well, first of all, let's acknowledge that everyone makes mistakes.
Everyone.
It's part of the learning process. Even native speakers stumble over their words sometimes.
You're kidding.
The key is to not let that fear paralyze you.
Right.
One of the best ways to build confidence is to simply start speaking, even if it's just to yourself.
You mean like walking around my apartment, narrating my every move in English? Now I'm opening the fridge. Now I'm deciding what to eat.
Exactly. And it might feel silly at first, but it really helps solidify vocabulary and sentence structure.
Right.
Plus, you're in the comfort of your own home, so there's no pressure.
That's true.
But of course, eventually you'll want to start practicing with other people.
Okay, but how do you actually find people to practice with, especially if you don't live in an English-speaking country?
Right.
I've heard of language exchange apps,
Yeah.
but do those really work?
They absolutely can.
Really?
Apps like HelloTalk or Tandem connect you with native speakers from around the world who are also learning your language. It's a win-win. You get to practice English, and they get to practice your native language.
Cool.
You can even have video chats if you're feeling brave.
You know, I've actually tried a few of those apps, and I was surprised by how easy it was to connect with people.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that you're both learning helps to take the pressure off a bit. You're kind of in the same boat.
Totally.
So there's less judgment. But what about people who might not be comfortable with one-on-one conversations right away?
Sure.
Are there other options?
Of course. There are tons of online communities and language meetups.
Okay.
Both in person and online. These are fantastic places to practice in a more casual setting, maybe even play some language games or discuss current events.
I love that idea. It takes the pressure off of having to carry on a full-blown conversation. Plus, it sounds like a great way to make some new friends who are also passionate about learning English.
Exactly.
And speaking of ways to practice, We can't forget about writing. I know some people might groan at the thought of writing exercises, but it's such a valuable tool.
It is.
But you're not saying we need to churn out a novel every day.
Right. Not at all. Even simple things like journaling for a few minutes each day can be incredibly helpful. Just jot down your thoughts.
Yeah.
Describe your day.
Right.
Anything that gets those creative juices flowing.
Okay.
It really helps to reinforce vocabulary and grammar. And there are some amazing online tools that can help you along the way.
Like Grammarly. I used to think it was just for professional writers, but honestly, it's been a lifesaver for my language learning.
Oh, wow.
It catches all those little mistakes I might miss and explains the grammar rules behind them. It's like having a personal grammar coach in my pocket.
Exactly. Don't underestimate the power of these tools. They can make the writing process a lot less daunting and a lot more fun.
So we've covered immersion with movies, TV, and books, and we've talked about active practice with speaking and writing. What else is in this treasure chest of language learning techniques? I'm ready to unlock the next level.
All right. Well, let's talk about pronunciation.
Okay.
It's something that a lot of learners struggle with.
I know.
But it's so important for clear communication.
Yeah, I've definitely had my fair share of pronunciation mishaps.
Oh, yeah.
I once tried to order fish and chips in London.
Okay.
But my pronunciation was so off that the waiter brought me peas and chips instead.
Oh, no.
It was a hilarious misunderstanding.
I can imagine.
But it definitely made me realize how important pronunciation is.
That's a great example.
Yeah.
And it highlights how even small differences in pronunciation can lead to confusion.
Right.
But the good news is that there are tons of resources out there
Oh, good.
to help you improve.
Like what? Where do we even begin with pronunciation? English has so many different sounds.
Right.
And it can feel overwhelming.
You're right. It can be a bit daunting.
Yeah.
But don't worry.
Okay.
Start by focusing on the sounds that are most difficult for you.
Okay.
There are websites like Youglish that let you hear how a word is pronounced by native speakers from different regions.
Oh, I love that. It's like having a personal pronunciation coach from all over the world.
Exactly.
And I bet YouTube is a gold mine for pronunciation tutorials, too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You can find videos on pretty much any pronunciation topic you can imagine.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to record yourself speaking.
Ooh, that's scary.
And then listen back to it. It can be a bit cringy at first.
It is.
But it's a really effective way to identify areas where you can improve.
Okay, that's a good point. Sometimes we don't even realize how we're pronouncing certain words until we hear ourselves say them out loud. But what about accents? English is spoken with so many different accents around the world. Do we need to try to sound like a native speaker from a specific region?
That's a great question. The goal isn't necessarily to mimic a specific accent perfectly. It's more about being understandable and feeling confident in your own pronunciation.
Right.
That being said,
Yeah.
listening to a variety of accents can definitely help you improve your comprehension skills.
I totally agree. I used to struggle to understand Scottish accents.
Oh, yeah.
But after watching a few Scottish films and TV shows, I started to pick up on the nuances.
Right.
It's amazing how our ears can adjust with practice.
It really is.
Yeah.
And while we're on the topic of listening, let's talk about podcasts and audiobooks.
Oh, yeah.
They're incredible resources for immersing yourself in the language and improving your listening comprehension.
Yes. Podcasts are my go-to for language learning. There are so many podcasts out there specifically designed for English learners,
Right.
covering everything from grammar and vocabulary to current events and culture. And audiobooks are a great way to get lost in a story while simultaneously improving your listening skills.
Exactly. Yeah. And if you're feeling ambitious, you can even listen to a book you've already read in your native language.
Oh, interesting.
It's a fun way to compare the different ways the story is told and pick up on new vocabulary.
Oh, I've never thought of that.
Yeah.
It's like a whole new way to experience a familiar story. And what about music? Can music help with language learning?
Absolutely. Music is a fantastic tool for learning pronunciation and vocabulary.
For sure.
Plus, it's just plain fun.
I know.
Choose songs you enjoy, sing along,
Okay.
and look up the lyrics to understand the meaning.
I'm a big fan of karaoke.
Oh, well,
So this is right up my alley.
that's great.
And I think music can be a really effective way to learn idioms and phrases too.
Oh, for sure.
Songs are full of colorful language that you might not encounter in a textbook.
You're right. Idioms can be tricky to master, but they're so important for sounding more natural and fluent.
Definitely.
Music can be a great way to learn them in context.
I've definitely learned some of my favorite English idioms from songs. Speaking of learning in context, Yeah.
What about online courses?
Okay.
Are those a good option for people who want a more structured approach to learning English?
Absolutely. Online courses can be incredibly effective.
I think so.
Platforms like Coursera,
Yeah.
Udemy, and Khan Academy offer a wide range of courses for English learners, covering everything from basic grammar to advanced writing skills.
Yeah, I've taken a few online courses myself.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate the flexibility they offer.
Yeah.
You can learn at your own pace.
Right.
And on your own schedule. It's like having a personalized English tutor at your fingertips.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you can choose courses that focus on the specific areas where you want to improve.
Right.
If you're struggling with grammar, there's a course for that.
Right.
If you want to improve your business English, there's a course for that too.
It's like a language learning buffet.
It is.
You can pick and choose what you want to focus on.
And with all these amazing resources available, it's important to remember that learning a language is a journey,
Right.
not a race.
That's such an important point. It's easy to get caught up in the goal of fluency
Yeah.
and forget to enjoy the process. But the journey itself is full of fascinating discoveries and rewarding moments.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
It's about celebrating the small wins along the way.
I think so.
Did you learn a new word today? Great.
Yeah.
Did you understand a native speaker without needing to ask them to repeat themselves?
Ugh.
Amazing. Those little victories are what keep us motivated.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And speaking of motivation, consistency is key.
Okay.
It's not about cramming hours of study into a single day.
Right.
It's about dedicating even just 15 or 30 minutes each day
Okay.
to practicing and immersing yourself in the language.
Yeah, I think a lot of people get discouraged because they feel like they need to spend hours and hours studying every day.
Right.
But even small, consistent efforts can add up to big results over time.
Absolutely. And it's about finding what works best for you.
Yeah.
There's no one-size-fits-all approach to language learning.
Yeah.
Some people thrive with flashcards. Others prefer listening to podcasts.
I'm definitely a multisensory learner.
Oh, no.
I need a little bit of everything. Immersion, active practice,
Yeah.
and a whole lot of fun.
That's the spirit.
Ugh.
The most important thing is to make the learning process enjoyable.
Yeah.
If you're not enjoying it, you're less likely to stick with it.
Okay, but what about those inevitable moments
Yeah.
when motivation dips?
Sure.
We all hit those plateaus. Any advice for staying on track when you're feeling discouraged?
I think we've all been there.
Yeah.
You're super excited about learning English at first, but then life gets in the way,
Huh.
or you hit a grammar wall,
Oh, yeah.
and suddenly that initial motivation starts to fade.
It happens.
So how do we stay on track even when it feels tough?
Yeah, how do we do it?
Well, one thing that can really help is to remind yourself why you started learning English in the first place.
Well-
What are your goals?
Right.
Do you want to travel the world?
Yeah.
Connect with people from different cultures? Advance in your career?
All good reasons.
Whatever your reasons are, write them down and keep them somewhere you can see them.
Oh, I love that. It's like a visual reminder of why you're putting in the effort.
Yeah.
It can be easy to lose sight of the big picture when you're bogged down in grammar rules and vocabulary lists.
Right.
But thinking about those long-term goals can really reignite that spark. But what about those times when even thinking about your goals doesn't seem to be enough? What if you're just feeling completely stuck?
Well, I think it's important to be kind to yourself in those moments.
Okay.
Learning a new language is a challenge.
Yeah.
And there will be times when you feel frustrated or discouraged. It's okay to take a break, step away from the books for a little while, and come back to it when you're feeling refreshed.
That's such a good point. Sometimes we put so much pressure on ourselves to be constantly progressing that we forget to simply enjoy the journey. And sometimes taking the step back can actually help you move forward in the long run. But how do we prevent those breaks from turning into full-blown abandonments of our language learning goals? How do we stay consistent even when it feels difficult?
One strategy that can help is to break down your goals
Okay.
into smaller, more manageable steps. Instead of saying, I want to be fluent in English, which can feel overwhelming,
Oh, yeah.
try setting smaller goals, like I want to learn 5 new words every day, or I want to watch 1 English TV show episode per week.
Okay. I can see how that would be less intimidating.
Right.
It's like taking baby steps towards that bigger goal of fluency.
Yeah.
And it's probably easier to stay motivated when you're constantly achieving those smaller milestones. It's
Yeah.
all about that sense of accomplishment, right?
Exactly. And it's important to celebrate those successes, no matter how small they may seem.
Oh, for sure.
Did you finally master that tricky grammar rule? Treat yourself to your favorite coffee. Did you have a conversation with a native speaker without freezing up? That's something to be proud of.
It is.
Acknowledge those achievements and reward yourself for the effort you're putting in.
I think that's such an important reminder. Sometimes we get so focused on what we haven't achieved yet that we forget to acknowledge how far we've already come. And celebrating those wins, even the small ones, can really help to keep that momentum going. So we've talked a lot about different techniques and resources, but ultimately it comes down to finding what works best for you, right? There's no magic formula for learning English.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Everyone learns differently.
Sure.
Some people are visual learners, others are auditory learners, and some people learn best by doing. The key is to experiment with different techniques and find what resonates with you.
I love that. It's all about self-discovery and finding your own unique language learning style. And once you've figured out what works best for you, it's all about consistency, dedication, and a whole lot of passion.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Remember, learning English is an adventure,
Yeah.
a journey of exploration and a lifelong pursuit.
I love that.
Embrace the challenges,
Right.
celebrate the victories,
Yeah.
and never stop learning.
Well said. So which technique are you most excited to try? We'd love to hear from you. And here's a final thought to ponder. What unique strengths do you bring to learning English? How can you leverage those strengths to make your journey even more enjoyable and successful? Keep learning, keep growing, and keep exploring the wonderful world of English.